Happy Friday and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. It's a great Friday. I'm joined by my number one. How you doing, Melissa?
I am great, and I agree. It is a fantastic Friday today.
Yeah, you get us about 30 minutes ago, and it might have been a different
It wasn't
answer.
so good, but now it's fantastic.
Indeed, indeed. So welcome everyone joining us live here. And trust me, this is live. We are right on the edge of things. And we've got a good crowd already trickling in. I've got my LinkedIn Live feed up on the device that is to my side. So let us know where you're from. Drop in the comments. We've got the Mapplication ready, and we're going to try to let everyone see where everyone is from. So, Melissa, what is our topic today?
We're going to tell you 7 things that you probably don't know about Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator.
Okay, 7.
Why not? 7.
Are we going to limit? We're going to limit it to 7? I don't know. We might go over. So
we'll probably go over.
So that is the topic today, and this is a product that was released just after V11, right? So it was fresh with version 4. So yeah, go ahead and let us know where you're from, and we got a few things we're going to cover here. So let's go ahead and jump into the slides. So the first thing I want to highlight is let's talk about the state of disasters today. What's the reality, Melissa?
The reality is that disasters happen. They come in all different size, shapes, and forms. You might not have a data center level recovery. You might just have to recover an application or two, but there's lots of things that can go wrong in the IT world, right? We ran into some things that could go wrong randomly before. I mean, it just happens. Anybody who's been in the IT world for any length of time knows to be prepared for the worst. At least I hope they know to be prepared for the worst.
Well, Michelle, who's our favorite character here in this slide, she thinks everything's fine. And I think this really underpins the reality that, we may not know how bad things are until we try to use it, right? Something like, and we're not saying disaster recovery like the traditional disaster, because we can apply this notion of broad recovery to a lot of things. It could be ransomware, it could be migration. There's, think of the art of the possible here. So there's a lot into it. So, Melissa, tell us about the product that we have to address this scenario.
Absolutely. We have a little something called Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator. You might formerly have known it as Veeam Availability Orchestrator. And really, when we talk about the different things that we're able to protect and orchestrate the recovery of, we're talking about new in version 4 Veeam CDP replicas. In version 1, it was Veeam replicas. In version 2, it was Veeam backups. In version 3, we started adding storage support. So each version of Orchestrator just adds more and more. And now we're kind of at this crazy inflection point where we can take the whole kind of Veeam 4-in-1 data protection and we can orchestrate the recovery of all of it. So, there's a bunch of things that go into that orchestrated recovery. Being able to prove that you can recover and you're ready to recover at any moment through things like automated testing, reports that are really lightweight and kind of check your environment, check your RPOs, make sure you're always going to meet them. In the case of CDP, make sure you're meeting your SLA. And then all this amazing dynamically generated documentation. You never have to write a DR document. And more importantly, you never have to worry about keeping a DR document updated again.
So, you hit on a few things here, Melissa. One thing I think is really intriguing about the Orchestrator product is that this notion of 4-in-1, CDP replicas, storage snapshots, replicas, or backups and then replicas, and trying to work backwards from current release. But that really walks into the different kind of tiers and, criticality of workloads. The thought is, everything needs a backup. That would be a fair assumption. And, with Orchestrator, you can drive backup recoveries, same site. That doesn't have to be offsite.
Exactly.
Right?
And it all ties back to backup and replication, right? I can protect these 4 different classes of data in different ways, from Veeam CDP for my mission critical workloads to just backing up that dev and test stuff. But when I actually go into B&R and create a job, I use the same wizard and everything works pretty similarly. So if I've created one backup and replication job, I've pretty much created them all. It's the same thing in Orchestrator, right? If I created one orchestration plan, I pretty much know how to do everything and I'm ready to go.
Wow. So you've sold us, sold me at least, and hopefully the attendees. And by the way, thank you all for letting us know where you're from. We're going to be lighting the map up here in a second. But with this preface here of the product, let's go into the 7 things that we've prepared. So, Melissa, do you want to take the first one?
I'll take the first one. And I might get myself in a little trouble here. But you can do almost anything with Orchestrator, right? One of the most powerful things you can do is add something we call a custom step, a custom PowerShell script to Orchestrator and have it run something for you. So this is great for existing scripts you might have in your environment for validation. Like I have one in my lab where I do my DNS changes with PowerShell and kind of all that stuff you have hanging around. And the cool part is that you can actually pass different parameters from Orchestrator to these scripts. So I could say, hey, run this script against the currently processing VM or pull the current VM's name for me. And there's actually a new thing in version 4, very subtle, but you can get a list of all the VMs in the plan to run a script against as well. So you can do just about anything. I'm just going to say that backup and replication PowerShell has a lot of really interesting things you can do with Orchestrator that you might not think of. I've done weird stuff with Cisco UCS because I love Cisco UCS, and there's a PowerShell toolkit there. So anything you're doing from a DR perspective today, if you have scripts already, you can pop them into Orchestrator, or you can come up with new things that, those things you would manually have to do as part of your creating an orchestration plan. Say, hey, you know what? Instead of making some poor person log into DNS and make all those changes, let's just script it.
When I was first playing with this, Melissa, I was calling Perl scripts and then calling tweets, and
I remember we were talking about that the other day. I'm like, what happened to that?
Yeah, I have the scripts. I got to bring them back for sure. So art of the possible, right? And things like DNS changes or other parts of your environment you could really manage as well. All right, so then this is my favorite. This is our second. We're going to be playing ping pong. So Melissa started. I'm going to come back. Unless I don't know what it is, I'll throw it back to her. But RTO and RPO SLA validation is automated with the VDRO, or sorry, I shouldn't say that publicly, but VDRO product. So what is an RTO and RPO? That's the recovery time, endpoint objectives. But validating that every day, this is so important, friends. And what I mean by that is you could design a system, any type of system, and on day 1, it's going to function as you designed it. But with data growth, changes, things being added, more workloads in play, it's very likely that on day 94, your RTO and RPO may have crept over the threshold. VDRO, or the Orchestrator product, this will catch it and give you these great reports that'll keep you up to date. And especially like on the backup plans that came in V2, you can even validate how long it takes to do a massive amount of instant recoveries or how long it takes to migrate these things to production. So this type of visibility, it is really strong in my opinion. So what's number 3? Do you remember?
I don't. Let's see what it is.
All right. Well, let's see. Oh, you got it.
Okay. VDRO 4 ways, right? So with version 4, we have 4 different ways to orchestrate recovery. Backup plans, that just restores from a Veeam backup. A regular replica plan, that's your traditional Veeam replica we all know and love. Storage plan, we support at this point NetApp ONTAP and Lenovo ThinkSystem DM, and stay tuned for more storage support coming. And of course, the big thing in version 4 is CDP replica plans, which are just the coolest thing ever. I was working on one beforehand. And like I said, it's really simple to kind of do all of this. You have this really easy to use HTML5 UI that you can actually say to your application owners, hey, I've locked everything down from a site scopes perspective. That's like our version of RBAC. And you know what? You can only see the VMs in your application. You can only see the recovery resources for your application. You can only see the plan steps for your application. Go and build that plan because you know how this thing is supposed to run way better than I, as the backup and replication person, do.
So great point here. And I'll ask you a question, Melissa. If, people who are attending the stream or watching the replay later, if you would recommend one of these plans to start with, what would you recommend that they start with?
That's a good one. It kind of goes back to the classic, it depends. Usually I tell people to start with Orchestrator, start with an application that you know really well, just so you can make sure that you learn the process of, hey, here's what I want to check for each and every VM. You know what VM, you know the database servers, all that good stuff. You can check them. So I usually tell people to start with something they know well, but you know what another interesting use case would be? Start with something really old, a really old backup application. Put it into Orchestrator, use the DataLabs testing feature to test your recovery, And then you can actually leave your application running after that for whatever time period you decide for testing, and test that application, test an upgrade, test a new patch, do something that you wouldn't do with that application before because it's so old and nasty and everybody's worrying about touching it. Validate it in the DataLabs saying, oh, okay, well, I updated the patches, I updated the app, everything works great. And that kind of empowers you to go back and doing some of that cleanup and kind of tackling some of those big, hairy applications that no one wants to touch because we all know they exist.
Yeah, indeed. Everyone has, I don't know if I can say this live, but it's, we'll just say it's application with the letters CR in front of them. So everyone has those. So let's go to the application, and in the spirit of making up words, let's see what we have. We're going to start out east, and hello, Anthony from Perth. We've got India. We've got a lot going on in this hemisphere. Thailand. I'm having Thai food for dinner tonight, friends. Represent. I love it. UAE. It's funny. The Teams has changed its view, so I can't quite see the application quite well. But I see India. So hello, India, and a couple others. But no, thanks for letting us know where you're from. Dubai. Hello, Salim, and Turkey. Romania, Indiana, Slovakia. I'm not knowing them in the right order, friends, but South Africa. I saw a couple chats there. Definitely keep letting us know where you're from. So we're going to come back to them application. A lot of Northern and Central and Sub-Saharan Africa represented. Good stuff. So thanks for letting us know. Oh, the main of Europe is probably up next. We had definitely some Spain. We had a lot of people. So definitely Indiana again, but definitely let us know where you're from here in the application. So I think I'm ready for a vacation.
Pick some place that's green on the map.
Yeah, so this was the third thing, or maybe this was the fourth. Let's see what's in next. So, this is something I think is really important. So we talked about the 4 different ways and all the different primitives or plans that go into VDRO. But each of them use this wizard. And the thought is, once you understand one of the wizards, you can build the others from it. So web-driven, HTML5. I'll be honest with you, I've been at Veeam a while. Took me a while to start liking this. I remember our VA. Well, it took me a while. I'm a curmudgeon-y old soul, okay? But now I'm good with it. This is the same web technology that we use with our cloud-based backup product.
I was just going to say that. It's going to look really familiar if you've ever used any of the cloud-based products or if you've used the new Veeam 1 version 11 web interface.
Right, and the service provider console, there's a lot, or VAC, I think was one of the first ones to have this type of technology, but really easy to use. So that being said, a lot of the middle meat, if there is such a thing, really after this question, a lot of the middle meat of these wizards is the same across the different plans. So again, the learning curve between a CDP plan, storage plan, replica plan becomes really easy to get started with. Good stuff is the real takeaway. All right, so Melissa, tell me about, this
is funny because we were debating, do we include this one or not when we were doing it.
So let's start with the definition. What is a protect VM group?
So it's a couple different things. So one thing that's really important to remember is, okay, I launch an orchestration plan, I fail over, and okay, that's now production. So I need to be protecting that data like I would my production data. And this can happen a couple different ways. You can create kind of backup and replication jobs on the back end. Tell backup and replication they should be orchestrator jobs. And when you go and create that plan, you'll see a step protect VM group. So if I was creating a restore plan, I would have a step in there, pick my protect VM group, and I would say, okay, pick my 12-hour RPO backup and replication job because this plan I have has a 12-hour RPO. Really interesting and really important, right? Because we're protecting that data when we get there if we need to fail back, or maybe it was a migration and we just want to make sure that we're immediately protecting it. And then from a storage perspective, it's a little different. So when you go and actually launch your storage plan, you'll have there's a little checkbox in there that says protect VM groups. So what that'll do is once you finish running your storage plan, in the case of a NetApp, it would reverse the mirror and resync it in the other direction. So it's swapping it for you and it's protecting your data back in the other direction. Again, so you're protecting that data while you're running in production. Very cool.
And the interesting thing is that this is set up ahead of time. So it's going to run most of the time empty until the plan is run, and then it would say, well, I got something to do now. Okay, so it's going to have to pick up that data. We've got a question from Mir, and thank you for this, Mir. Mir asks, thanks for the info. You're welcome. And then the next part of the question is, how much is the RTO and RPO? It looks kind of like a replication process, so that in case one copy is infected or otherwise compromised, I changed your question a little bit, it will replicate and infect the other site. Is that here? So I'll start with an answer, and then Melissa, you correct me when I'm wrong. But my thought here, Amir, is that you have to kind of understand that underneath, or in conjunction or extending from VDRO, is Veeam backup and replication. So the actual data mover is Veeam backup and replication. So the image-based backups, the Veeam replicas, the storage snapshot orchestration, or CDP, are the data movers. And to any of those three, actually, so everything except backup, do run the risk of taking a problem and propagating it through, and really backups do as well. They just usually go farther back in time. So my thought here is, you want to have your other dimension, which would be your retention, right? So RTO and RPO are great, but you got to think about your retention. So I talk to a lot of organizations that struggle with, how much do I retain? Do I keep a day of CDP, or do I keep a day of replicas or something like that? Or do I keep 7 years of backups, right? So you might walk into having multiple plans. I think that might be one takeaway there. Melissa, any thoughts?
Yeah, and something to point out is that when you go to actually launch an orchestration plan, you have the ability to use the most recent restore point or pick a different one. So if you've already, something happened, okay, well, this happened 4 hours ago, I got to go back 4 hours and restore a replica from 4 hours ago because that didn't have the problem, or something like that, right? So you actually have the ability inside of Orchestrator to pick the retention point that fits whatever your use case is at that time.
Yeah, and definitely I would think about how much retention you want. The good news is nowadays, with the scale out backup repository, at least from a backup standpoint, you can really not have to make those decisions of, do I save costs and storage capacity, or do I meet my retention requirements, right? With the capacity tier and the archive tier, you can go cheap, deep, and forever in the cold storages. So I think that you have the options there, Mir. And then you might want to go look at backup and replication to kind of understand the data mover that Orchestrator will use to make it easy. All right, what's next, Melissa? Oh,
yes.
Well, you have a special affection for the DataLabs.
I have a special place in my heart for DataLabs. It's really the strangest thing. DataLabs are fantastic, but let's face it, from a backup and replication perspective, I, as a backup admin, don't want to say, hey, application owner, here's how to log into BNR and run a DataLab. Good luck with that, right? I don't want to do that. So we can actually leverage the DataLabs through Orchestrator. You would configure them once in backup and replication. And then inside of Orchestrator, you would say, okay, I want to use this DataLab to test this plan. And here is my VM group that I'm going to use for supporting applications. So AD, DNS, anything I need in there, you would have in that VM group. The DataLabs would mash that up with your application, start it up in an isolated bubble, and you're ready to roll. Now, here's the cool part. You can run it on demand with a couple of clicks. It takes less than 2 minutes to run, or you can schedule it. So I could say, okay, every Tuesday at 6 p.m., I want to give application XYZ a test, and then I want to leave it open for another 4 hours because they're going to log in there. They're going to train the new person, make sure they're comfortable in the environment. They're going to test patches that have just come out, either Windows patches or application patches. They're going to test that application upgrade. They can do literally whatever they want. You can literally do anything you want with a copy of your data, right? One of the most common use cases I talk to people about is that patch testing, right? Okay, some 0-day came out, and I don't want to patch because I can't prove it's going to work, and I don't know it's not going to break anything. And how many people have we seen, or how many organizations have we seen fall to some kind of security threat because they didn't patch, because they couldn't validate their patches work? It's kind of like this double-edged sword. I have a risk of patching, but I have a risk if I don't patch too. So through the late use of Veeam DataLabs, we can reduce that risk. We can prove that your patches are going to work, so you're good to go. Or we can prove that they're not going to work. So you can decide, okay, what do we need to change to make this to work? Or, do we need to accept this risk because there's just no other way? It gives you the information you need to make the best decision.
Yeah, I'll go one step kind of sideways and say sometimes some apps are just so fiddlesome that you can't touch them otherwise.
Right.
Meaning they need to be patched, but oh boy, it's so fiddlesome. I don't know if it'll break. It's broken before when I needed to do these types of things. That's a perfect use case for a data lab. I've been here at Veeam for a number of years, and I've got nothing but really good examples of when someone gets their head around a data lab, the amount of time that they can save and potential issues that they can avoid is incredible. And here's the kind of the side benefit of a data lab is it actually gives your stakeholders as an IT pro, it gives your stakeholders confidence in your IT operation. And what I mean by that is, let's say you don't have a data lab. Melissa, I need 4 hours of downtime to upgrade XYZ application. And what are you going to say?
Are you sure it's just 4 hours?
I'll say, oh yeah, it's fine. So then I'll take you. You'll give me that time window,
It's gonna be like 8 or 12. There's no way it's gonna be 4 hours. You don't have any clue what you're doing.
Or I have to back it out at 4:30 or 4 hours and 30 minutes, right? And so, what's your opinion of me if that's how it goes?
Not very good, Rickatron. Not very good.
Right. So then the flip side is, hey, Melissa, can I have 6 hours of downtime?
I don't know, Rick. What are you going to be doing in those 6 hours? And what's your backup plan?
Well, so Melissa, I have taken XYZ application and I've tested it on last night's backup to do this critical Windows update. I've also upgraded the whatever .NET framework that's been made obsolete. And, we did all the necessary reboots and I tested download time. I estimate it's going to take 5.5 hours based on last night's data, but that's even running slower because it's from the backup versus the production environment. I'll take a backup. Here's what it looks like. Here's some logs from the application. So I think we're good.
Here is my data lab test report too. So when you test your DR plan, you actually get a copy of the report with all green check marks, of course, because we're testing saying all of your DR plan steps ran and they're good to go. So if there's anything you wanted to do in there with, your patch or application testing and you could script it, right? You could add the scripts right into Orchestrator and you can just do write host and Orchestrator will put it in the reports for you. So if your process is scripted, and most are, right? Pop it in there, right? And let Orchestrator do all the dirty work for you and tell you, yes, application patch test script version 72, good, whatever.
That sounds majestic.
It does sound very majestic. And you can actually have these reports automatically emailed to key stakeholders, whoever you need to, right? So it just shows up in your inbox with the green check marks and everybody's happy.
Does it look something like this?
It does. So documentation made easy. I am like some really weird documentation nerd, and I don't know how else to describe it. I've always loved documentation. And there are 4 main document types inside of Orchestrator. We have our plan definition report. That is your detailed DR plan with audit log. Readiness check is that lightweight check. It always checks your RPO. It checks your destination environment, make sure there's no problems there. And in the case of Veeam CDP, it will also check your SLA. That data lab test, which proves that you're meeting your RPO and your RTO. And then, of course, if I did need to hit that big red button for some reason, or I was doing that plan migration, the execution report, which says, hey, the plan executed as expected. We are very, very happy here.
So William, you actually gave me a big scare. You're on the, I'm going to get to your question, but I'm like, well, you're William, middle initial L, last name starts with H. Our CEO, middle initial L, last name, or H, last name starts with L. So I was like, it just got my eye. So anyways, you got my attention with your question, William. William's question, Melissa, is the easy button different than a sure backup job, or is it simply putting an interface on the sure backup job?
So you don't even need to configure the sure backup job, right? Orchestrator is going to do all that for you. All you need to do is build that data lab shell inside of backup and replication, and then Orchestrator does the rest for you.
Yeah, good stuff. So it couldn't be easier to use. And, one thing about these plans that I like to say, Melissa, is that they do a really good job of bridging the gap between your application in business terms to the infrastructure. So that's the meeting of the business and IT. So that's another way to look at it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's take another final look at the application. And man, the marketing team has been really busy, and I appreciate your help, Alina, Mark, and others to help us bring this. So we're going to load the map here. We got Canada, we've got a couple states in the U.S., Pennsylvania, again, Indiana, India, Malaysia, South Africa, Kenya, Germany, Netherlands, Poland, Spain, Italy, Uganda, Portugal, France, Libya, Turkey, UAE, and some South America, bienvenido, Gustavo. So a couple others, coming in here. So really appreciate everyone letting us know where you're from on the application. Australia. It's nice to kind of go around. We need somebody from McMurdo, the research station in Antarctica, to tune in. I do know that we have Veeam deployed on Antarctica. I saw a couple years ago. Yeah, we had one of the labs. There was a transaction down there. But anyways, Veeam the world. Melissa.
Yes.
What are some key takeaways for this?
Oh, have I got a takeaway for you? You can go download a 30-day free trial of Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator, and I have a little bit of cheating for you with that. So when you install Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator, you also install Veeam Backup and Replication and an orchestrator version of Veeam 1, which doesn't do the data collection, but is looking at your environment and has business view and all that kind of good stuff. So if you just need a quick and dirty Veeam lab setup, Orchestrator is a great way to do that, especially if you just want to test CDP in the lab. That's actually how I have my lab running, and the embedded Veeam 1 can handle all of the SLA alarms and proxy stuff for CDP. So it's all right there. So your quick and easy way to test 3 Veeam products at once is downloading Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator.
Good stuff. And I would be in trouble if I didn't promote on Monday the Dave and Jason show, or their episode 2 of 3 from the mid-market research series continues, the persona for the mid-market data protection space. So check that out. And then there's this other thing going on at the end of the month, Melissa. What's it called? What is it?
Veeam.
Veeamer? Veeam Go?
Veeamers, Veeam Stock.
Veeam Off? Veeam Stop?
Veeam On.
Veeam Start? Oh, that's it. Veeam On. That thing. Yeah. So there's 3 things we want to highlight. We're going to have demos. We're going to have breakout, and maybe not disco, but maybe some other fun.
Maybe some disco. Why not?
Yeah, who knows? We
can do disco while we demo.
Wow. I am standing for my demos, so there's that versus sitting and bouncing around in the chair. But one of the things I'll highlight at VeeamON, let's see, what's the orchestrator conversation? We have the CDP trifecta session.
Yeah, so there's a great session on CDP across not just Orchestrator, but Veeam Backup and Replication, Veeam 1, and Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator. So talking about that. There's a bunch of really hot demo sessions. There is one dedicated for Orchestrator. So you basically get me for 30 minutes showing you the coolest stuff in Orchestrator. There's a dedicated one for Veeam 1. So that's 30 minutes of Kirsten doing amazing things with Veeam 1. And there's a Veeam CDP workshop. So if you're really interested in CDP, it is like the soup to nuts super session on how to get started with CDP in your environment.
Yeah, so the CDP workshop with Rasmus and Joe and Tim, that one was a secret ad by me. Rasmus is a great trainer for our curriculum here at Veeam. End to end, we thought that would be a really good, that's 75 minutes, by the way, Melissa. That's the longest thing. Yeah, because, I've been talking to support, talking to the enterprise SEs, talking to partners. They want to know how this works, because CDP is one of those things that just people want some hand holding on. So that's a great highlight. And the other thing I'll highlight is that in the ransomware breakout session that I have, I give a plug, I don't do a demo, but how VDRO can really help around the response plan part of a ransomware strategy. So we're trying to connect the dots here. So a lot of great stuff at VeeamON across the product space. So hope to see you all there. And, here I'll say this, it's free. It's a free virtual event, and we've got the schedule published, and I confirm minus 1, none of the things are going to move on the schedule at this point. So that's actually really encouraging. If you just want a little bit of stuff, you can register and attend for that. And then there it is. Just go to veeamon.com and you can learn and see. And one other thing I'll say is that the demos, by the way, they're a little bit easier on a virtual event because you're here to there from screen. In a giant room, it's always harder. So we've actually found that works at these events. So we've actually added more demos for Veeam On. So that's another plug there. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Rick. It's a pleasure as always to spend our Friday doing this, right?
That's right. That's right. Any closing comments?
Give it a try, get the free trial, test out those 3 products, and Veeam CDP is awesome, basically.
That's a good way to put it. I'm going to talk to the marketing manager about that.
Yeah, you talk to that orchestrator marketing manager.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you all for attending here. And on behalf of the Veeam Global Marketing team who brought you this and operated the broadcast and produced the content, I want to wish everyone a great weekend. Thanks for watching this stream, everyone.